Hi, kiddies. Robin Miller for RACER Magazine. Editor David Malsher. Jack of all trades, Marshall Pruett. Qualifying's over here at Fontana for tomorrow night's MAV TV 500. And I think, boys, we can truthfully say Roger Penske kicked their butt.
Yes, he did. All credit to Willie P and obviously Helio, but AJ getting in after, how long since Indy 500 and sticky on the front row, it's just awesome because it's not a pleasant experience out there when you're running over seams. He's having to do a lot of work out there, but, maybe driving a sprint car gave him good practice of opposite lot.
Will told Marshall he thought he had a lap at 2:21, and he qualified at 2:20, and then Elliott at 2:19, AJ at 2:18. It was a Chevrolet parade, kind of like Pocono, Marshall. They had the four fastest guys and 6 out of the top 9.
Yeah, the top end is the part that the Chevy drivers have always felt they've had an advantage. We obviously saw at Pocono that the Hondas were incredibly strong. Honestly, tomorrow's going to come down to fuel mileage. So we know that these cars can go very quick, but we know that some drivers are much better at saving fuel than others. We don't know exactly where the fuel mileage war has gone since Pocono, right? Because we did see that Honda appear to have a slight advantage. We haven't seen these cars on a big, flat-out, wide-open oval, so we can't go just on Pocono. We know they've been doing work. We just don't know how that's going to play out tomorrow.
Tell people who are watching this, how do you save fuel on an oval?
You lift as much as you can, and as crazy as that sounds, every driver can adjust their lines a bit. They can do a few things, go to different fuel trim settings that use less fuel, but really this is about getting into a draft, feathering the throttle as much as possible. If you're up front and having to brake the air and also hold some sort of lead, you can't necessarily save as much fuel as you would like. But a guy like Dixon, we've known for years, there's no one better. He's a guy who doesn't have to be up front, doesn't have to lead. Helio has to lead. Helio has to get the most laps, lead the most laps, get as many points as he can. It puts things definitely in an advantage towards Dixie in that capacity, but who knows if Chevy's actually caught up on fuel mileage.
David, when we were at Pocono, I remember standing with Scott Dixon's chief mechanic, Ricky Davis, in the back of the grid, and he's like, can you believe this season? And, of course, it all turned around, starting at a big oval like Pocono. Do we read too much into qualifying, or do we just think, well, okay, Chevrolet's got the upper hand in qualifying, but it really doesn't matter where you qualify at this joint?
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it because, like Marshall said, it's going to come down to fuel mileage. It's also going to come down to yellows. If the Chevys can run, if there's a yellow in the final stint and the Chevys can suddenly richen the mixture, then I think they do have an advantage for sure. And in particular, there's 3 guys with, in cars 12, 2, and 3, and they have an advantage over the other Chevy runners. But on the other hand, none of them have been out in the same kind of conditions that we'll see in the closing stages tomorrow night. So I think there's a strong chance that we get a surprise like we did last year where we had Ed Carpenter battling with Alex Tagliani, who was in the BHA car, and it was a phenomenal battle as well, and they were kicking butt to all the big teams, so That was fun.
Ryan Hunter-Reay told me, he says, whoever's best on worn-out tires is going to win this race. He says, I don't care about horsepower, I don't care where you qualify, it's going to come down to tires, so it might. But Dixon's got a 25-point lead, Marshall, so something probably bad has to happen. I mean, as good as he is and as smart as he is, Castroneves has to win the race and basically hope.
Helio just needs to go kick ass, period. We could give you some elaborate, well, if he finishes in third, then of course they're going to be looking at finishing positions where they need to be. There's no reserve. There's no, well, we'll just play it safe. They have to go for maximum attack. Of all the tracks we go to, this is probably the one you don't want to have to do that. As we saw last year in practice, in testing, in the race, many crashes. The seams catch people out, grip levels change, sun goes down right as we start the race. Temperatures are going to come down as well. It's a lot of variables. It's not just go do 80 laps on a road course and everything's kind of the same start to finish. This is 500 miles of massive variables. So for Helio, what does he get to do? Struggle with those, just like everyone else. But he has to be the best of everybody while struggling with those variables. It's a tall order.
And I'd also argue that it's probably the first time this year that he will have been on maximum attack.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the practice sessions at Houston, but he ended up going backwards more often than he was going forwards. So I think, this is him suddenly reaching into depths that he hasn't reached all year, just going flat out. But he's brilliant at it. I mean, he'll be brilliant around here, without question. When push comes to shove, he's as brave as any of them, but he needs to produce that and not make any mistakes in pit road. And that alone, when you're slowing down from 220 to 60 to, 0, that's when mistakes can happen.
Marshall, I think what I was reading might have been your story. If Helio wins, Dixon's got to finish no worse than fifth or something like that. So that's still pressure. But like last year, what we saw, Tim Cindric told Will Power, pass him early in the race. He says, go out and pass Ryan Hunter-Reay, and we saw what happened there. I think Scott Dixon's a little too smart to get aggressive really early.
You're mentioning another thing that's maybe been slightly underreported. Let's talk about the personalities, not only of the two drivers in this championship hunt, Helio and Dixon, but the personalities of their teams. What did we have last year with Penske? We had them being more aggressive with their driver. We have Helio this year, who's the person from their team in that championship position, and he's had many wins. He's had many famous wins. Have we ever seen him, I shouldn't say ever, have we seen him in recent years go out under massive pressure and not crack? It doesn't have to be a big crack, but crack a little bit. Here, small mistake, big crash. You look at Dixon. I mean, you could shoot that guy in the foot and be like, all right, cool, thanks, let's go. I mean, the guy is just not fazed by anything. You look at Mike Hull and his timing stand, you'd think he was asleep half the time. It's just calm, cool customer. Well, he is, but cool customers. Not saying the Penske team can't adapt or modify. I'm just saying between both programs, one is kind of proven they're built for these kind of pressure scenarios. The other one, if Helio does come through and win, we're going to have to revise our thoughts about them.
But again, we go back to Chicago 08. He goofed in qualifying. That meant he had to start at the back then. But he came through the field flawlessly and won it, by a Nat Scott on the line. So there's no doubt Helio can do what is in his control, but whether it's enough.
Yeah, he can't control Dixon. All right, last thing. Who's going to win the race? Who's going to win the championship?
I think Hunter-Reay might be the one to come away with a win. He hasn't had he's obviously not going to repeat as champion. He's pissed about that. He's smart as well. I think we might see the Andretti team end the season on a high. Disappeared a little bit in recent weeks, but I think they're probably going to be in the best position to not have to do anything strange to succeed. As for the championship, if Dixon doesn't win, it's going to be an epic collapse that I don't expect. But I'll just mention this quickly, Robin. If you look at the struggle Ganassi had as a team through Indy, heck, even through June for the most part, and Honda also maybe not being up to par with Chevy, their Dixie season, for the most part, started at Pocono.
Right.
He's leading the championship, having effectively started that championship run halfway through the season. That's a big statement. So personally, if they don't win, it'd be a big surprise because they are just killing people with what they have going on right now.
All right, shorten your answer. Who's going to win the race? Who's going to win the championship?
Marco or Will Power to win the race. There's no denying that Scott Dixon will win it, and he'll deserve it.
Ed Carpenter's won the last two season finales. I picked him on television last year to win. He's going to make it 3 in a row. Really? I'm telling you, I know he's qualified, not that great. Where is Eddie? He's ninth. That's where he wants to be. And we're going to be saluting Scott Dixon's third championship come Saturday night. Thanks for watching RACER.com. Talk to you tomorrow night.